Welcome back, people. Let's get into our passage, and we're going to answer questions 1 and 2 of our checkpoint using our reading Katrina survivor stories. So, you already read this and took this checkpoint. We're going to go over the correct answers and some testing strategies today. Let's read question number 1. So the first 2 questions kind of go together, part A and part B, and the last 2 questions kind of go together, part A and part B. So in part 1, or part A, question 1, let's read this question. Which statement best explains why Hurricane Katrina was so dangerous according to the passage? Let's go back and read the first 2 paragraphs of this passage so we can remember what we read. A deadly storm. Hurricane Katrina was one of the most dangerous storms in U.S. history. The hurricane formed in the Atlantic Ocean and grew stronger as it headed toward the United States, hitting Florida on August 25th, 2005. The storm got worse, and people living in its path were told to leave. Some did go, but others stayed behind. Many were trapped in New Orleans, Louisiana, where 80% of the city was covered in water over 10 feet deep. Many people risked their life to help rescue people trapped by Hurricane Katrina. Read on to learn more about one such person, a rescue swimmer. So the rest of this passage is about a rescue swimmer named Sarah Faulkner. Let's go back to that question. Which statement best explains why Hurricane Katrina was so dangerous? So up here, I remember seeing that it says Hurricane Katrina was one of the most dangerous storms in U.S. history, but we want to know why. It says here a few sentences later, many people were trapped when 80% of the city was covered in water over 10 feet deep. So that's telling us how it trapped people and how the storm was dangerous. Let's look at our answer choices. A, the storm knocked over many buildings. I don't remember any of this text talking about buildings or knocking over buildings. So I don't think that is the best answer. I'm going to cross it out. B, the storm began over water and moved to land. Well, hold on a second. That might be true, but it's asking us why Katrina was dangerous. And I feel like this answer doesn't answer the question, why was it dangerous? Let's go back and see if it did begin over water and move to land. Let's see. Dangerous storms formed in the Atlantic Ocean and grew stronger as it headed towards the United States. So it might have started over the ocean and then gone over the United States. But like I said, it doesn't really explain why it was so dangerous. So that doesn't really answer our question. C, the storm caused flooding where people lived. Let's go back to our evidence. We know it was dangerous. We also know that it was because 80% of the city was covered in water 10 feet deep. And that's what flooding is. When a place is flooded, it means water has covered up things people need, like people's shelters, people's homes, people's cars. So that is a really good answer. I'm going to highlight it for now, but we're going to go ahead and check D just in case. The storm made it difficult to fly helicopters. Let's see. In this passage about Sarah Faulkner, it told us that Sarah used a helicopter to save people. So that's not true. People still were able to fly helicopters, And that wouldn't explain why the storm is so dangerous anyway. So D does not make sense because people were still using helicopters like Sarah was. So our correct answer is C. The storm caused flooding where people lived. Now, to go along with our answer, remember, we're going to take this answer and explain it in part B. Part B, question 2 says, which detail from the passage best supports your answer from part A? So we want to pick a piece of evidence from the text that explains and supports and proves that the storm caused flooding. So we're looking for a quote from the article that talks about flooding or water covering up the city. A. The hurricane formed in the Atlantic Ocean and grew stronger as it headed toward the United States, hitting Florida on August 25th, 2005. Okay, I mean, that's true. That's a quote from the article. But does it explain the flooding of where people lived? It doesn't talk about flooding. It doesn't talk about places being covered up with water. So I'm thinking, no, that doesn't go with our answer. Oh, I accidentally underlined it. I meant to strike through that because that's not right, I don't think. Let's try B. Many were trapped in New Orleans, Louisiana, when 80% of the city was covered in water over 10 feet deep. Ooh, that one does go with my answer to part A because I was talking about the flooding was so dangerous. And here it's talking about 80% of the city was covered in water and it was deep water. And that's like what the flooding was. So I think this quote does support my answer, but we're going to keep going anyway. Many people risked their life to help rescue people trapped by Hurricane Katrina. Well, that might be true, but that doesn't support that the storm was causing flooding. That is a fact, though, but it doesn't support our answer. And let's go to the next one. D. Sarah Faulkner and the rest of her Coast Guard crew boarded the rescue helicopter and flew through the tail of the hurricane. That's also a true fact, but it doesn't have anything to do with the dangerous flooding that caused Hurricane Katrina to be so dangerous. So that one is not a good answer either. So our first two answers are part A is C, part B is B.